Coming up on a special holiday edition of One Detroit. An exhibit at the Detroit Historical Museum examines the history and traditions of the city's former Chinese neighborhoods. Plus, Cranbrook Art Museum hosts a display of contemporary arts focusing on African American life in Detroit. Also ahead, Oscar-winning costume designer Ruth Carter talks about a display of her original costumes at the Wright Museum. And we'll take a look at some events and activities to take you into the new year. It's all coming up next on One Detroit.
From Delta Faucets to Behr Paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Support for this program is provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Nissan Foundation and viewers like you.
Just ahead on a special arts and culture edition of One Detroit. A local community of artists depicts Black life in Detroit in a show at the Cranbrook Art Museum. Plus, movie fans will recognize many of the costumes on display at the Wright Museum from Oscar-winning designer Ruth Carter. And it's a big weekend coming up. If you don't have your New Year's plans yet, Peter Worf of 90.9 WRCJ is here with suggestions. But first up, an exhibit called Detroit's Chinatowns explores the history of the city's Chinese community through artifacts, photos, video, original art, and oral accounts. It's on display in the Detroit Historical Museum's Community Gallery. Contributor Chien-An Yuan and One Detroit senior producer Bill Kubota report on how the exhibit preserves stories that were in fear of being forgotten.
The corner of Cass and Peterborough, Detroit's Chinatown, long forgotten, or is it? Detroit Historical Society curator Lily Chen and Chief Exhibitions Officer Tracy Irwin want to prevent that from happening. Their exhibition, Detroit's Chinatowns, presents the story of a neighborhood intertwined with so many Detroit immigrant communities.
I'm the daughter of two Chinese immigrants that came in the 1980s. And because I'm from a later generation of immigrants that were more highly educated and spoke Mandarin, I grew up unaware that Detroit was actually home to a thriving Chinese community for so long. So this project is very much a love letter to the communities that came before me that really paved the way so that I have an opportunity to flourish today. This really makes me emotional, but it's like there are so many people that were so brave for so long so that, later generations can come and make a life.
Detroit is a city with so many forgotten or lost community stories. The Detroit Historical Museum's Community Gallery fills in those gaps.
But sometimes we find stories that we need to tell and we don't have another space within the museum to tell it, so that we then work with the community to help tell a story. Lily, our assistant curator, she brought the story to us and we were like, yes, we have to tell this story. So then she then sought out community members through the oral history program to tell the story. So, they were able to come in, share their perspective, and then put this amazing exhibit on the wall.
So much of the Chinatown community, and I'm so proud of this, is still here in the Detroit area. And when we kind of started to contact the major Chinatown families and all these different people that had lived in Chinatown, they came out and said, we've got these artifacts in our attic or in our basement or in photos, in photo books, and all of the kind of community members were willing to share those and to tell their story. So we're so grateful. Really, this is a truly community curated exhibit because the community community members were willing to share all the things that they had, and you can see a huge range of those artifacts in the exhibit. One special family that contributed a lot of artifacts is the Lim family, and they were the second owners of the Shanghai Cafe, and it was a single mother with 3 kids who ran the restaurant on her own, and many other women in the Chinatown history who are featured in the exhibit as well were just such heroes and carried their families and their businesses with such resilience.
Some amazing finds to see here. Items once commonplace in Chinatown thought to be discarded, destroyed. Chen connected with the ex-Chinatown community to put together this unique collection, revealing artifacts hidden from the public for decades.
One of them is the original mahjong table that came from the Lim family. It is, estimated to be from the 1950s, but probably from earlier. This is an artifact that would have been played in Chinatown during that time. That artifact is so cool. It's the table, as well as the surrounding chairs, the light, and the actual mahjong set. It's an honor to have some of our veteran medals, including a Silver Star and Congressional Gold Medals, which were awarded to Chinese American veterans that served in World War II, and they're here on display.
This is a rewarding dive into the stories, the images, the artifacts. But what relevance does Detroit's historic Chinatown have now, 20, 40, 60 years later? The exhibition's creators hope we can step back and see the much bigger picture.
Obviously, the Detroit Chinatown story is very relevant today, with demolition, with communities talking about it. So having this exhibition in this space at this time is serving a community need. We're able to not only talk about the Detroit's Chinatown and really tell a story that so many people don't know about, but talk about why it was here, why it is no longer here, and hopefully be able to carry that story into the future.
One of the things that I like to think about and work with is at the intersection of history and memory. The fact is that this is a big part of not only AAPI history, but just Detroit history. I would really hope that there are more ways for the communities of Cass Corridor, of which there have been so many through history, to be able to remember and celebrate their histories. As a historian, the major thing that I don't want to have happen is for these communities to be forgotten.
And you can check out Detroit's Chinatowns at the Detroit Historical Museum through January 7th. Let's turn now to a creative display of works at the Cranbrook Art Museum. The exhibit, Skilled Labor, Black Realism in Detroit, features paintings, drawings, and art installations from 20 contemporary artists in Detroit. The pieces represent their unique approach to illustrating the Black experience in the city. One Detroit producer, Sarah Zientarski, spoke with some of the artists involved in the project.
It's a historical exhibition, absolutely.
This exhibition really demonstrates the legacy of really genius here in Detroit, Michigan.
It's about artists who engage with each other and support each other and build with each other. I think that's the biggest thing.
We are located at Cranbrook Museum of Art in Bloomfield Hills, right next to the Academy.
The idea of this exhibition actually came through curator Laura Mott. We thought about the last 10 years of Detroit contemporary art for Black Realism and highlight, the artists that we wanted to highlight.
This is the all-star game right here. Everybody in here is an absolutely incredible painter and artist.
The name of the exhibition is Skilled Labor, Black Realism in Detroit. And what I believe it means, specifically for me as a co-curator, is thinking about labor in general, but specifically labor in Detroit. So each artist in the exhibition handles that differently. So everybody's work does not look the same. They don't approach realism the same, but it's a spectrum of artistic ideas that are approaching this subject matter.
I like how it touches every corner of a Black experience in each portrait.
I think one successful way that this exhibition carries the Black body or the Black narrative is that it showcases a number of artists who have a diverse, although similar and yet dynamic narrative that isn't just confined to the identity, the political identity of Blackness itself, which is just based on the colorism of it, but more so people's background, talking about themes of liberation, themes of empowerment, empathy, themes of even migration. You know, you also see moments of joy, families bonding, pain. So it's successful in the sense that it gives artists the opportunity, and also the viewers too, who come to see the show, a big depth and breadth and scope of like all these narratives combined.
You'll see a lot of work that deals with the muralistic tradition in Detroit, and there's drawing, there's painting, and there's also an aspect of installation, specifically Rashawn Rucker's work and Sidney James' work. So there's all of these different aspects for viewers to kind of really get involved in something beyond their general idea when they think about realistic art.
For me to be a part of this conversation of Detroit realism, of Detroit legacy, is truly an honor. My painting is hanging alongside Huber Massey, who was my teacher, who literally provided me the foundations of figure drawing. So it is truly an honor. My painting is titled Bound for the Land of Canaan Land, which is really very much inspired by Detroit's history with the Underground Railroad. One of the hymns that was sang during the enslaved route was a song called Bound for the Land of Canaan Land. And so Canaan Land was code word for Canada.
My interpretation of Black realism is, for me, is trying to paint the Black soul. I'm trying my hardest to portray Blackness in a way that conveys a lot of vulnerability, intimacy, and asks the viewer to interrogate and investigate what they're seeing and what they're perceiving. Derek behind me is my best friend's brother. Derek is full of culture. Now, from the way his hat, the way he ties bandana around the hat, to his earrings, to his chains, to everything. And these are things that we have kind of pushed culturally for so long in like the pockets of our society. It gets to the point where people judge these attributes of Blackness as a negative of Blackness and not a wholeness of it, and not a beautiful part of it. When it's not negative, it's culture, it's bravado, it's beautiful. There's nothing, he's not doing anything wrong. So I like to paint him in his state and ask you, if you do have a problem, if you do feel uneasy with this type of image of Blackness, then where is that coming from?
So there are two pieces that I have in this exhibition. One called Yonder is a piece that was made in 2018 upon graduating here in Cranbrook. The other piece is called Menorah's Volta, and it's a portrait of my wife with her hair braided. And Laura Muck came to my studio, and she brought up this idea of the anti-portrait, which is a discussion that her and Mario Moore were having.
I like to pull the viewer in, which is why I feel like realism is really important to me, because I want you to feel like, as the person looking at the work, that you can walk into the space, or that the figures in the work are engaging with you in some kind of way. The work that I have in this show is older work. One work that I made last year during my exhibition that had to deal with Underground Railroad and contemporary Detroit. And then another painting that had to do with medical experimentation on Black bodies.
What I hope the viewers take from this exhibition is the great or bigger sense of love and vulnerability and coping mechanisms and the drive for growth and liberation.
I hope that viewers understand the rich legacy of Black artists in Detroit, to understand that, you know, we're here, we've always been here, and as we are looking at younger generations, that this legacy will continue.
There's so much talent and there's so much richness and cultural depth that I would hope that when people see this and they say, oh, everybody here's a Detroit artist, they take a trip down to the D. That's what I hope.
And you can see Skilled Labor, Black Realism in Detroit at the Cranbrook Art Museum through March 3rd. An extraordinary exhibition of costumes from iconic movies is on display at the Charles H. Wright Museum of African American History in Detroit. The original designs are by Academy Award-winning costume designer Ruth E. Carter and features clothing from films such as Black Panther, Malcolm X, Coming to America, and Selma. American Black Journal host and One Detroit contributor Stephen Henderson sat down with Carter at the museum to talk about her stellar career and the inspiration behind her creative designs.
Do the right thing. It's really great to have you here among, as you said when you walked in, all of your children.
All of my children are here with us.
That's a really great way to think of all the work that you do. You know, taking in all of this work, the time over which it all unfolds, of course, in the range. But I always want to start with artists talking about inspiration. Where do you come up with all of these things?
So each project has its own story and its own process. Some of the process is the same, you know. For me, I like to have conversations with the director and the production designer, and that sort of dictates what colors you're going to use. And but also there is, you know, the research of the storytelling and what's the time and place, what was happening during that time, and then that travels you down another road. So it really is like one step at a time. We do a lot of illustrating and you know, like when I look at some of the photographers of the time, like James Van Der Zee and Teenie Harris, you know, it's inspiring to bring some of those images to life, and that's where a lot of the images come from.
Yeah, yeah. I know it's unfair to ask an artist which are their favorite children, but some of the work really stands out as maybe a more personal expression or more of you that you put into it to make a statement.
You know, I get that question a lot. Favorites, you know, they're like my children. I can't have a favorite.
I can't choose.
But there are some that the whole experience was amazing. I mean, being in the desert at the pyramids in Egypt on a Spike Lee joint doesn't get much better than that. But at the same time, you know, learning about our journey from when we landed here, going through all of the different ways we clothed ourselves. And I didn't know that they had these special places on the plantations that were just dedicated to spinning cloth and sewing garments. And so that was exciting for me to, you know, to get into that. So, you know, every single one. I mean, of course, Black Panther being a very, very special film. Is like a favorite. I learned a lot, even after 30-something years in the business, I was still learning. But, you know, Malcolm X was wonderful too. So it's hard to really say one. As soon as I say one, I think of another.
Right, right. And again, the range of material here in terms of the story is so broad. I mean, clothing people for roots is really different than clothing people for Wakanda or for Do the Right Thing.
But actually it isn't.
It's not. Okay, tell me why.
It really isn't. I have utilized the African diaspora on everything.
On all of them. Okay.
And sometimes it's the way we combine the colors. Sometimes it's bringing in the messages, you know, and Do the Right Thing. They had little lanyard that they would wear around their necks. So Africa with the colors of the flag, and, you know, Kente, and we used a lot of Ankara and Do the Right Thing. So there is just like, you know, you and I, you know, we can trace our roots back.
Sure.
And that's the same with clothing. We can look at clothing, like for roots, I wanted to use like the indigo, and how, you know, indigo was used quite a bit in Sierra Leone. And so I used the blue as a family color. And I carried the blue in every episode of Roots Reboot, because I wanted to have a lineage and a legacy. So really, there is a lot of our past woven in the present.
To all of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We also have here on the exhibit the sewing machine I believe you used as a child, is that right?
Yes, my sewing machine that was in my room.
Yeah.
My mom put it in my room. Actually, it was folded up and it looked like a desk.
Okay.
So, I guess my mother like pushed that thing in my room and said, she can do her homework on it, or maybe she'll discover that this is a sewing machine and she'll want to use it.
Yeah.
Single parent household. I had, there's 8 children, 5 brothers and 2 sisters. So, we were very inventive as kids. I have 2 brothers that are artists, and they're painters and sketch artists. They didn't work at that. That wasn't their primary job. I mean, I'm a child of the 70s, and so they were before me, and we had to actually go get a job, and painting was like a hobby. So I had that sewing machine in my room, and when I discovered it, it kind of replaced my sketchbook. So I like to think that I'm the sum of my parts, that I had this love for sketching and drawing that I got from my brothers, and then I discovered this way of working with textiles and making art with the sewing machine.
Yeah. So you are the first African-American woman to win 2 Oscars. I mean, just saying that is kind of
Surreal.
Remarkable, right?
Yeah, thank you.
But the work that took you to that moment is also really special. I mean, it's special to so many people. Talk about Wakanda.
Yeah, well, I worked really hard. And, when I met Ryan Coogler at Marvel, I had amassed a lot of images on my computer in a Dropbox. I didn't know that once you got into the Marvel studio that you couldn't open things like Dropboxes. They have a firewall. And I'm kind of a little concerned because I'm in an interview and I can't open the images that I collected over days to show him. And he was sitting there very relaxed, and now that I've worked with him on 2 movies, I see that disposition. I can remember this disposition, even though it was new to me then. He was very laid back, he was very patient, and he said, Ruth, I'm really glad you're here. I was a little boy growing up in Oakland when Malcolm X came out, and I remember it was a family environment in the theater. People are excited about the movie opening. I went with my family. I sat on my dad's lap and watched Malcolm X, and I remember as a little boy seeing the costumes. Wow. And when he said that, what I was concerned about on that Dropbox was no longer important.
That's not the issue, right?
Yeah, and I realized I could contribute something to this young man. We created this world together. It's a very collaborative field. So by the time it was released, the trailer came out, I was sitting there watching, and I immediately started getting text messages and tweets and all kinds of stuff, and I thought, wow, this is really going to be big. And then there I was on the Oscar stage.
And you can see Ruthie Carter Afrofuturism in Costume Design at the Wright Museum through March 31st. This weekend, we say goodbye to 2023. If you're looking for something to do to close out the year and welcome the new year, Peter Whorf has some suggestions in today's One Detroit Weekend.
Hi, I'm Peter Whorf with 90.9 WRCJ, and I'm so excited to share some events you can enjoy throughout the weekend and, of course, New Year's Eve. Tomorrow, Kalamazoo's own Green Sky Bluegrass is coming to the Fillmore, Detroit. The band makes sure to keep the bluegrass tradition alive while also pushing the genre forward in their music. On Saturday, you can go to Aretha's Jazz Cafe to see In the Tradition, Kwanzaa celebration. Enjoy the music while also hearing about the significance of Kwanzaa. And you can get in some exercise before ringing in the new year during the New Year's Eve run on Belle Isle. If you're ready to party after your run, head to the Masonic Temple where the Resolution Ball is being held. There will be DJs, Cirque-style entertainment, and a whole lot of fun to be had. Another option to bring in 2024 is Southeast Michigan Omega Foundation Incorporated's New Year's Eve Gala at Suburban Collection Showplace. It's a black tie affair that's sure to wow its partygoers. Of course, there's many more events happening as we head into the new year. I'm going to leave you with a few more. Have a great weekend.
That'll do it for this week's One Detroit. Thanks for watching. Head to the One Detroit website for all the stories we're working on. Follow us on social media and sign up for our weekly newsletter.
From Delta faucets to Behr paint, Masco Corporation is proud to deliver products that enhance the way consumers all over the world experience and enjoy their living spaces. Masco, serving Michigan communities since 1929. Support for this program is provided by the Cynthia and Edsel Ford Fund for Journalism at Detroit Public TV.
The DTE Foundation is a proud sponsor of Detroit Public TV, among the state's largest foundations committed to Michigan-focused giving. We support organizations that are doing exceptional work in our state. Visit dtefoundation.com to learn more.
Nissan Foundation and viewers like you.